So I'll call this meeting to order. Attendance. So we've got everyone here. That's great. Let's see. Minutes from last month. Did everyone get a copy of that to look over? You also got that in the packet that I handed out. I'll take a motion to make any changes or approve. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Are you opposed? So we'll move on to discussion for tonight. One thing I do want to do, we don't really have a spot for it on the agenda. Like I said, I apologize for the lack of structure right now. I will work on that. It's a little kind of scattered right now. Under old business, we had a discussion. Sam brought up in last meeting about his ability to have a counting vote on this subcommittee. I didn't know one way or another. He asked for clarification on that. I went and looked. Based on the way the chairman set up all the subcommittees, it stated in that ordinance that only the people appointed had voting rights. And so I let him know about that. He's not here tonight, not because of that, but had a vet emergency with one of his animals. And so Rosalie is going to be sitting in for him tonight. He has provided some written notes on some of the topics. And then any questions, he said he'd be more than happy to look up for us in the morning and get that information to us. So just want to go ahead and get that, our old business kind of taken care of. New business, so we've got the rezoning of the fee table that we've been looking at. Planning's already gone through this. They're the ones who initially put it together. I think it's a great kind of a setup. The whole idea of doing this is right now the county eats the majority of the cost of having to do rezonings. Whether it's meeting costs, whether it's publishing it in the newspaper, which is getting more expensive. We're pretty much supporting the VIDET as it stands right now with all these. Because it's not just rezonings we're having to put in the paper, it's also site plans. Anything that's having to come before planning has to have a public notice. BZA stuff has to have public notices, all that costs. So what we decided is it's not fair for the county to take on the expense of developers and property owners doing rezonings to financially benefit themselves. And so we're passing the expense back to them. And so here's pretty much just kind of a rough chart. We got this idea how to execute this from Cheatham County.
Yes.
And so this is kind of the way their fee structure was set up. And so we kind of temporarily kind of put that there because planning can't set fees. That's only for this body and the full commission to do.
I did have a chance before a couple of weeks to go through and review the packet, and I will say that I've got friends in Wilson County government, and that's one working over there, and this fee table is extremely lenient.
Yes.
I have not been able to locate anywhere we have any kind of an impact.
We do have an impact fee.
Do we now?
Charge, yes.
Yeah, because that isn't.
And it is based, we have a separate one for commercial and for residential. Residential is so many cents per square foot. Above, is it 2,000 that it jumps?
So
what it is for the impact fees is anything under 2140 square feet as far as the living area, which is heated and cooled, is $1,500. If it's over that, then it's assessed at 70 cents a square foot.
Above that 21.
And then commercial is a straight 30 cents per square foot. And typically commercial.
okay, I was not aware that was it. Yeah. So, but this fee schedule, I mean, I have a gentleman in my office. I just printed it and walked over and said, hey, and they just said, man, that's a good place to build because, I mean, in Wilson County, if you're going to pull a permit and try and get something zoned, and it's going to cost you $5,507.
Yeah. So
Rutherford County is no different.
And in that, in your packet there, Rosalie had pulled up some other ones from surrounding areas. I believe, can we put that in here?
Again. The first one is, I started looking at, okay, what is counties that are similar to us? Cannon County is on here. I also printed out, the Wilson County, Watertown,
Wilson County's got a lot of fees in places,
yes, they
in
did.
different places I was not aware of. But they said you'll spend between, I said, it's ridiculous, I said, it's $100. Before it's start to finish, they said the fees
Right.
are everywhere,
This is, okay.
with impact.
And see, they're charging for each plat that comes before the planning commission,
Yes.
but we don't do that.
Not yet.
Wilson County is charging, $50 plus
They're a little higher.
25 per lot
They're a little higher than some.
for final, and sketch plats are 50 and 10 per lot. So we haven't even, So-
we don't do that.
yeah, you could spend almost $200 just getting your plats looked at.
That's right.
You know, we just go funny down.
Which would help their planning, you know.
$600.
Yeah.
For their rezoning.
Mhm.
$600.
I'm not kidding you. I mean, you'll spend $500 to $700, $7,500, but with the impact fees and everything else, it's outrageous.
I mean,
Wow.
Then you take a look at their
No
utilities.
wonder they
So-
have so much money. So much, you know?
in Cannon County, I mean, I'm looking at theirs, just the rezoning application fee, that's $500. That's the charge.
And we're setting one at 100.
At 100. No, like I said, these are placeholder numbers. Planning has no authority to set fees. So all we did was,
You know,
here's a chart.
Meet in the middle somewhere in
Now-
there, because, I mean, that just stops the people that aren't serious,
Yes,
just researching.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things Derek Ledford told me about Rutherford County, he says, once we started implementing fees for that stuff that really mattered,
Mhm.
he said that stopped all the BSers that were just trying to do research to see what they could get out of something if it was.
well, and we're getting on planning, we're getting several situations where we're having developers come in, they buy a piece of property, bring in a site plan, and they have their minimum, I don't even think they do a fee for site plans, do we? So they get to bring a site plan in for a subdivision, cause us to go through all the work in planning, discussing it and looking at it, having GNRC review it, do all that, and then it never gets built. 'Cause they're
Exactly, that's
they're
what he was
having
saying,
it
they had
drawn
to
up
stop it. They
just
stopped
to
it that
be able
way.
to sell it off.
Down here at, beside Cunningham, old Cunningham Motors, that lot, right there, it's been what, 2 years now, year and a half, 2 years?
He's coming up on, he's gonna have to come back through the whole process.
This time it should cost.
That's what I'm seeing. The other one is out here by First Baptist. You know, they came out, at that original property, the owner came to us wanting to build houses in there, a subdivision.
Yeah.
And we actually thought we were helping him out by doing the R3 there so that he could get a couple extra houses to offset the environmental issues he was having with runoff water and whatnot. And we were trying to get one part addressed and help the developer in addressing the problem. Well, he hosted us with it, sold it off as an R3, and now you come back and we get the plat for all, the 113 townhomes there, and they're still not being built.
I was gonna say, has that started yet?
No,
Haven't even broke ground. Not even a driveway cut. Nothing.
They
you
have an
know,
allotted period of time.
but the thing is that unless we implement some of these charges in place,
I think
they're
we
just
should
gonna
add-
put it,
I
we
think-
don't need to keep taking it
I
on the
think we
chin.
need to add over this,
Maybe.
if not less, at least $50 or $100 more.
I think more than that, looking at the surrounding counties too.
Well, I mean, but Wilson County is a lot bigger than we are, you know?
And they have a lot more going on, and they
Yeah,
bring in
more
a ton of.
Exactly.
Yeah,
At the same time, we have less acreage in Trousdale County.
Yeah.
And it needs to be something that if you wanna be in Trousdale County, you're
Put your money
going,
where your mouth is.
you gotta want to be here. Otherwise, we don't want you here. If you're just wanting to come in to take advantage of us and move
Great
on,
Village is not time for that.
Cannon does 500.
Yes.
can it?
Now,
You wanna talk about
Get a
rural?
good look at some of the communities in Sumner County and take a look at their deal and what the municipalities is. It would spin your head.
So, I mean, I have,
And that's not even talking about Williamson.
Oh.
we won't even get,
Yeah, let's not.
Throw a $10,000 in front of them.
But the reason that they do theirs so high is to regulate what growth comes in to their areas.
Sure.
That's the biggest problem we're having. that's the biggest problem that we're having right now. It's cheaper to come to Trousdale. So if you wanna do a quick business and just throw something up, we'll come over to Hartsville.
I do think though, going from 0 to 500 is a bit much.
I mean,
We did it with the impact fee.
yes,
When we put the impact fee in, it jumped from it was a couple $100 to that 1,500.
I'm telling you right now,
What do you think?
Oh, they bitched and moaned, but they're slowing
Immediately.
down.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you won't stop it, is bring.
it's, and it'll bring quality, not
They-
quantity.
The builders bitched and moaned like we were cutting their throats, never slowed down, never slowed them down a bit. They kept
Yeah,
right
and
on.
Okay, so
Wilson
where
County
does this
could not believe it.
$500 go?
It go to the general fund.
Yes, it does. And then
And
the,
what one?
The fees that would go here would go to the general fund, and then they would be, then through budgeting, would go to cover Sam's expenses.
Has the housing slowing down, building now, since, everything is,
According to the last report we got for planning commission, it has slowed down. But it's the holidays.
it will for 36 months, 48 months.
Yeah. they said to what, 25?
It looks like, based on the signs that are sticking around, at least in Hartsville where I'm driving through, sales themselves have slowed down.
It has a lot.
Because I'm seeing signs that used to, you throw a sign up and within 3 months it'll be gone.
Within a week.
Yeah, so I'm still, just in Hickory Ridge, Jason Ford finished 3 houses. Those were being sold before he ever got them finished. All 3 houses are still for sale. It's been
You'll start
It's been
seeing
November.
reductions.
I got 11 acres up here in Macon County and, at 141, right there by the, cemetery, turn right, go out that way, left, go out that way, little piece. Like, we got 11 acres out there. Now, out of town, realtors would send us something in the mail, start out around 20,000. We're up to 43 now, almost 44. They won't, to buy it.
So, let's just go down the list here. Let's try to throw some random numbers out, based on what we're seeing and what we think would accomplish the goal of, because like I said, I'm all about quality versus quantity.
100%.
We're looking at some stuff from planning where we're gonna be doing the commercial, materials for facades. I'm trying to push not only the material, but also the architectural structure of the facade to try to have a more standardized, not an
Wilson
identical.
County, they all look the same.
So I've been to a couple of places down in Mississippi that had some real stringent code. You can't tell where anything is. I've gone out to Hilton Head, all the buildings look the same, the signs are all really small. If you're not from there, you don't know where anything is, and that hurts business. I don't wanna do that. But I'd like to see more businesses looking like Hartsville Pharmacy and less businesses looking like the Dollar General store down on McMurray, the standalone. Where it's going in front of Hickory Ridge,
Yeah.
where it's just a metal building, it looks
What
like it's a
happened to
pole
them
barn.
not putting brick around that?
That was an oversight that they got away with, and we had no regulations for Sam to enforce it. We should have caught that when they said that the surround for the dumpsters was gonna be blocked, the brick that would match the building. Okay, we assumed it was gonna be a brick building like every other one around us. They were just talking about the brick block there at the very back.
Yeah, they
And
slip one in on us.
And so that's
They
why
don't
we're
learn.
doing, so that this doesn't happen anymore. Because this is what's happening. We're getting people from out of county who don't care. They wanna build as cheap as they can to keep their profits as high as they can do. And they don't care what it's gonna look like in 15, 20 years when they're gone and the building's still sitting there and we have to deal with it. So I think that'll be coming
Yeah,
before
that
us
looks like a
down the
pole
road.
In a sense, that's what it is.
Yeah. It's just a steel framed, yeah. But, so for rezoning applications, we're sitting here at 100, Buchanan's at 5, Wilson was what, 6?
If we're at 350,
I think 350 is a reasonable place
that's very
to.
reasonable.
Um,
It's a substantial increase from where we were.
yeah,
350 Street.
and then, so site applications, so that's $100 straight fee. If we do it that way, then we don't have to charge per site like, Wilson County. Just do a lump fee and that gets you through your process.
I think 250, 300.
I think 250 is a fair, what Wilson County was doing was right at that 250 mark, depending on how many times it had to come before.
250 is what you said?
Yeah. And then plat amendment application, now Rosalie, you're gonna have to help me on that one.
When someone has to come back, say they submitted a site plan
Mhm.
and they have changed, say for instance, for example, like the Hilltop subdivision,
Mhm.
where they have all the different triplexes and fourplexes. If they had to do like a fiveplex rather than a fourplex, if there's so much change to the original site plan, they have to come back to the planning commission to
Okay,
get it approved.
okay, so this fee would have, like the gentleman who had to, the storage building out by the four-way, who had to come back before BZA for that
Yes.
variance because he changed his plat. Okay, that makes sense.
Any fee on that?
That's at 150, so that'd be 150 on top of the 250 they're already doing.
200.
That's,
That's where I was at.
and at this point, honestly, just for the recording purposes, anyone watching, we can't actually set the fees. These will be recommendations we put to the full commission. I think the wording on everything on this document is fine. Really why I wanted to bring it in here was what we're doing right now.
Well,
So-
and also I see that you've added E in that said what happens if they don't post a sign.
Yes,
That was the question too at the last meeting,
exactly.
and
So,
that's included in there,
Yeah.
I think, so.
so there is a penalty there. There is a set process.
And I think that's a great process, I think that, yes,
It leaves documentation and
yes, exactly.
And if, okay, so they report it vandalized, it wasn't vandalized, they did it themselves, well, that's a false police report, that's
Exactly, that's on
someone
them,
else's problem.
yes, exactly.
So back to the list here, minor subdivision application and major, so that would be,
250,
yeah, I think that should easily go up to 250, and then on
Also-
major,
500.
no, I'd take the major to 500 if
That's
we're gonna.
exactly.
Alright, so now on the public notice, that $100 there, that's what it cost us for the sign, that's a deposit.
That's what it costs right now for the sign.
Yeah, and that can be amended at any time down the road.
Yeah, but
Um,
when you got somebody in the middle of a process on something,
so that's a deposit for a reusable metal sign, so that everyone understands what that fee is. It's
make it
not,
250, they're gonna get it back.
you're gonna get the sign back, yes. Well, then they get the deposit money back.
Well, make it 250, make it $100. Some people, I mean, it's worth it to them to tear the sign up and,
But then if they do
But-
it themselves, then they have to pay another $100 to get it up themselves.
Well, and if they don't have the
Understood.
sign up, that's what it says in here, if they don't have the sign up, then they start back over,
Yeah, they have to start all
This
over the
process
process.
all the way back over.
So they're gonna have to pay another $350.
understood, but I would still take it to at least 200.
Yeah, so that's.
Make it sting,
I mean, but it's just a sign deposit, they're gonna get it back.
I know.
Yeah.
But if something happens to the sign, they don't get it back.
And also make them think more about doing their changing. What they're going for.
They're gonna get it
Instead
back.
of doing it just to find out if they get it done.
I'm okay with it being $100, or even $150, since it only costs us $100
Mhm.
to replace the sign.
Alright, well, we'll do it this way.
So,
So we I mean, just with a show of hands, who's in favor of $100?
I would go,
Okay, so 150. Anyone else at 150? Okay, so there's 3 at 150. Anyone at 200? We got 1 at 200. All right, so 150 it is.
I appreciate your rationale.
Application for BZA. So that's all applications for variance to what our zoning is already in place. I think that should be a minimum 250.
Minimum maybe 3.
I was gonna say, I think it should be
Just
because.
I'm sitting in on some of those meetings just to find out what's kind of going on, because a lot of those people are new. there's stuff coming before BZA, probably really shouldn't be coming before BZA. They're just, well, I'd like to do this, so let me go and see what the BZA has to say.
350?
I think it would slow things down, but then, so,
It'll make you serious or not, you know.
exactly. And you're not, because the BZA only meets when there's a reason to meet.
I know the
So-
expense behind that alone, yeah.
Exactly. And then the sign,
350.
I say, well, the signs, I say we just take up to 150 on all three of those.
Yes.
That's your deposit for the sign. Because the way Sam's got the signs, so it's a metal frame like a real estate sign. It's a 2 foot by 2 foot sign. And then across the top, so in the middle will just be your general, kind of like when you're seeing the rezonings in Sumner County. So it's your general, Trousdale County, rezoning or zoning issue. It's just general language. Then your header on that, which is interchangeable, that header actually tells what it is. It's a rezoning, it's a site plan announcement, it's, for whatever issue. So I don't see it being any more than, when you get your rezoning sign. So I think going 150 with all those, does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
It's,
Yes.
Look,
it's the same sign.
where are you at on the BZA application?
I really think that 350 is.
Yeah.
Is because I don't think it should be any higher than a rezoning itself. So if we raise rezoning, it would make sense to raise BZA, but to
350 is
exceed it,
fair.
yeah. And that's just looking at the counties around us.
Oh, yeah,
I think we're still way under everyone else.
considerably, yeah.
So-
And it's always been one of those things when I started finding out that what we were charging and what we weren't charging for, I was like, oh.
Canon only does 300 for BZA.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. What is
I was about
that?
to say, I've never heard of that board.
Yeah. I understand, I asked, something about that too. Say for instance, code requires certain things. And, if one of the builders saying, well, there's something else that we can do in place of that that's similar to that,
Newer technology or whatnot.
right? Typically, Sam will ask for an engineer's letter, which we have to validate and verify that, the engineer does have a license and, everything's above board. They could come to you guys, if they don't agree with Sam's decision.
Okay, so as far as coming,
It's a fee for the hearing, right?
Construction Board of Appeals, who's on this board?
there's not. That's what she's saying. It would come to,
To us, or the planning commission, or?
They'll probably come here.
so there is no
But you guys-
official construction.
350 sounds about right.
It'd be the same as any other.
Yes.
So. And since it doesn't really exist, it's not really pertinent.
And it would be.
I think it needs to exist.
It does, and I would say, it's
It
gonna
does
be
come
on
up,
an
and
as
that's 350.
per instance basis. I mean, if somebody actually pushes it,
Yeah.
then we would have a call meeting.
Yeah.
We would sit and hear it.
Well, and yeah, because on a construction board of appeals, I would want more contractors, actually part of that, or at least some more product individuals who knew the different products and the strengths of materials and whatnot, not just us. But that's something that we could have them bring in. You wanna appeal this, okay, well, bring us your proof. And just handle it as, just like planning is supposed to be handled as a kind of a mock
Hearing.
court type situation, we just handle it that same way. So I think, 350 would more than cover that, and then that covers your sign deposit there too. And so,
And you could also utilize like the state fire marshals office too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of,
with the fire codes and
Questions.
whatnot, on different materials. All right, so, the one thing that wasn't on here the last time it came before us was section E. It's on the back of the page across from your table there. You've got it right there, Lonnie.
Yeah.
So the absence of the public notification sign will result in any application process being reset to its initial step. So if they don't post the sign out, Sam drives by there a week later, sign's not there, they pay their fee all over again, so that's another $350.
Start back at square one.
if they go through planning and they have it up, they go through the first reading of the commission and they have it up, and then they take it down. Well, then they start all the way back over, pay another $350, go back through planning and work their way back through the process again, is the way that is set up.
And
Sounds good, so they'll do that.
who is enforcing the signs?
Sam.
Okay,
Because Sam is the codes enforcer.
okay.
Now, the questions were brought up, okay, well, what happens if it's vandalized? You know, what if the neighbors don't like what's coming and they want to punish the landowner, so they take the sign, or so they've got 24 hours to file an incident report with the police department, and they have to present that to Sam's department, showing, yes, it was vandalized, I filed a report, here it is, and then they would get another sign. Hopefully the way that, and I think the 250 or the 150 kind of covers those instances, because everyone's not gonna be vandalized. And so some of those that come up missing, that retained money would go to replace those missing signs. We might actually have to, and that 350 there kind of covers some of that also, raising the rezoning and the other ones up also that require a sign.
Well, that's just gonna keep us from completing the budget.
Exactly, and that's the point. A lot of this is really eating into his functioning budget, and it just makes the budget numbers look very skewed. Like he's spending all this money. Well, yeah, he is, but it's all mandated money that has to be spent. He doesn't have
It's
any control
operations.
over it, yeah. And, I don't think he should be penalized on his numbers because of something he has no control over. I think this will greatly help that out. And so they're given 24 hours to report it. And then it also, and of course, they're not penalized for that. The other thing that we wanted to make sure that is in here was wording that came from cheating counties, and I'm gonna look into this even further. I know it passed muster. I've had it looked at by both the county attorney. Section, number 8 there, any zoning changes which are initiated by Trousdale County Planning, that property owner is not going to be charged the associated fees. That's something that we're initiating as a county as far as planning.
In the middle of their
As far as-
process, yeah.
Exactly, as far as rezoning. So like when the tobacco barn burnt down behind us here, and that's an industrial zone area from when it was the city, and that's in the middle of town. And really, that's not your best place to have industrial in a planning situation. That would be more commercial or residential. It would have been great for the county to be able, once that building was gone, to go in and be able to rezone that property and take it out of the industrial, and then everyone wouldn't complain about a concrete plant in the middle of town. It's just that's part of that, being able to clean up zoning so that, because there's nothing wrong with it, it meets all the zoning requirements, it's industrial. But we've had a lot of places that were pre-planning, that were pre-zoning, that it'd be nice for the county to step in and fill in those gaps for an overall general plan of planning. Now granted, we don't have one right now. We've paid for having one done. GNRC was supposed to take those steps last year, actually the year before. COVID slowed all that down, but we've paid the money for this grand plan and we've got nothing for it. So that's something the mayor's gonna have to take up with GNRC. At this point, they're almost breach of contract, in my opinion. Just, 2 years and we have nothing to show for the money that we put out for that. I don't think that's acceptable. With the fees being marked, and I'll get those changed before it's sent to the full commission. Do I have a motion on this to either accept or turn this down?
Motion to approve, accept these changes.
Lonnie's got the second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to the next one. So campground ordinance, let's see. I don't know if Amy printed that out for me. Yeah, it is in our books.
county laws.
It's in, actually, it's in, I believe the exception's in both,
Okay.
but we can look at the county one, the reading of it is all the same. What section is that in? So that is Article 421 in the county. I talked with Brandon Beller about this. He understood the concerns. And also, they're looking at trying to get a beer license. Rita talked to me about that. I don't know if she said anything to you about that. In conversation,
His is due to come back up again, so.
yeah, as long as they're in violation of zoning ordinances, legally, we can't give them a beer permit because they're violating the law. And so this would kind of help out. So Pine Cove is the example right now that's functioning. There's another individual who's looking at opening a campground in the county. So this isn't just a one situation. This is going to pertain to all campgrounds
So as a restaurant, they
in this
can't?
county.
In this, it says, they are located, designated, and intended to serve exclusively the patrons staying in the campground.
So for them to advertise
As a
for,
public restaurant?
as a public restaurant is illegal by zoning.
Except restaurant is not specifically mentioned in this. It's camp stores, laundry facilities, and
That is
personal,
that market
personal
across
services.
The one
Road.
beside it.
The one beside, there's a, right across the way, there's like a little bake shop. Slash store.
One was open, but I don't think it's even open
I
now.
like it
Yeah, so,
yeah.
That lady that had it a long time ago had beer, sold a little beer out of it.
yeah, she came in for, I remember her getting her beer permit.
Yeah.
And we had issues there because she had people, you can't, by state law, you can't stay at a campground more than 30 days in a row consecutively. And there are several people down there who, at one point, actually had permanent roofs and front and back porches attached to their campers. Well, that's not exactly 30 days temporary housing. And so Sam at least got that cleared up, but still, we're still having issues down there. So I don't want to address this solely based on that one campground because there's other issues. I don't want that to look like they're being rewarded as they're still violating other zoning. But since we do have other campgrounds that are looking to be started up in other areas, I thought it was pertinent to take a look at this and see if maybe this isn't a little overbearing on the regulation, because there is no campground that is going to be able to survive a restaurant solely by the people at the campground.
Not at all.
You go to Sumner County and they are,
Oh, yeah.
every one of them, I mean,
During the summer down there, they turn off the road to the left, and go back by the church.
Look at all
Yeah.
days.
Audaddy's,
It's a Cove,
Shady
it's a
Cove.
Cove.
Cherokee.
Yeah.
I
If you
mean,
go to Shady Cove, I mean, there's people over there that's got porches and all kinds of stuff.
yeah, they're in Sumner County now, so that's not a
Yeah, that's their, that's,
But
I'm like, wow,
But
they
that
must be living
restaurant-
here.
problem.
that restaurant runs for everybody.
Absolutely, yes,
And great food.
yes.
Yeah.
And I just think that this needs to be changed.
this would clear it up. This is only, and if you look, it specifically states your development standards for private campgrounds. So it should not have any unintended consequences into other residential zoning. It's another reason I wanted to bring it up for this meeting, because we're gonna get into that part. My concern was, you've got commercial business operating in residential zoning, and I didn't want that to spread out throughout the community. Because I think that's what this is intended to stop. But this being very specific, campgrounds fall under special exception only. So it is a very niche, very chiseled out part of zoning going with campgrounds. Talking with Mr. Beller, he completely agreed with that. He said that changing, just taking the exclusively out would pretty much suffice to what we're needing to do. Without giving me a written out legal opinion, through the discussion, just taking exclusively out allows them to serve patrons from anyone who comes in, any patron who wants to come in. And that helps keep you know, the campgrounds from getting run down and becoming eyesores if they're profitable, in my opinion. Anyone else has any thoughts on that?
Make a motion that we
Amend it.
come up with this and send an ordinance to the full body this.
Should be, I'm still kind of new at this. I'll get with, the chairman and, well, Amy will probably be the one who writes it anyway, to find out whether we need to do a resolution to amend, or it would just be an ordinance to amend.
I think it would be an ordinance.
Yeah.
I believe it would be.
Because it is
So-
an ordinance, you
change it
have
to
to
a exclusive.
change an ordinance with an ordinance.
With that
Okay,
word change.
so then the motion is to create an ordinance to amend section 4.110 in development standards for private campgrounds to remove exclusively,
Change the verbiage.
just to remove that word out of the existing ordinance, just for minutes purposes.
Yes.
And that is for the county, you need to also.
For the
Well,
county
the
and
Hartsville.
And for Hartsville.
urban and county, yes.
We can go ahead and do this now and kind of get it going. And then when we go to do the combination, they'll be both combined and it won't matter at that point. That's something also, so that, the other one is solar farms.
Wait.
Oh, we still need to vote on this.
Yes.
So we have a motion, do I have a second on that? Second from Mr. Belcher.
Change the motion.
Um, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that one. I know we're getting late and I don't wanna, there's a lot that needs to get done, at least some of getting started on this. I was really hoping to be able to do these in one meeting at a time, but I think that was just too ambitious on my part. Let's go ahead and do, just a look at solar farms. Let's see. Alright, so. They're the same thing, this is what Beller gave us at planning, so I know you've seen that one. I know Rosalie's seen it. Here's, one is for Hartsville, one is for, Trousdale.
It's
They're-
not in the packet? It's not the same thing that's in the packet?
It is, that is the
Yeah.
same one that's in the packet, okay.
Back to,
Yes, okay.
back to pay two bases.
Amy does a better job than I ever give her credit for. And that's on camera. So, with both of these, all this came out of planning, favorable, they wanted to push it on forward. When we talked about it at our last meeting, I couldn't find anything, and talking with Sam, this is gonna be dealing more with a private entity, but this does give a definition of what a solar farm is, because we don't have any definitions for this in our current zoning. It still doesn't stop a utility for using solar panels, a large array of solar panels, powering the utility that they're, the pumping station that they're doing, because it's an accessory. And in our zoning, it specifically states that any utility and its accessories are permitted in any of the zones. So that's agricultural, residential, it's in all of them. So windmills have not been discussed yet.
Whatever you're looking at, it's coming. Windmills,
Windmills. Oh, yeah,
big ones.
Yeah.
Wind turbines, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, they like
So-
That's so cool.
cover a lot of territory.
That's what powers Southern California.
So with windmills, they would at
Texas.
least fall,
Texas, yes.
they would at least fall underneath our existing, cell tower, laws, as far as fall radiuses and whatnot. As far as appearance, once again, it's a utility. Now, if it's a private, well, even private utilities, they're still utilities. I don't agree with that, but I don't really say in that anymore, or at any point. I don't agree with the private, natural gas companies being able to come through and eminent domain property because they're making profit off that. It doesn't matter if they're serving a large body, they're making profit, they're a private company. Property owners, in my opinion, should have the right to sell or not sell to a private company. It's not like it's a state.
But they do it under the fact that they've got a contract with the city, federal to do
Yes.
utilities, so that's where
That's how they get
they're
around.
backdoor that into being able to.
Yep. And I disagree with it. But the issue with the solar farms, it's gonna fall in the same situation. But this at least gives a zoning application and a definition of what it is. Anything over 10 acres is considered a farm, in the way this ordinance is wrote up.
It's not to stop nobody, but
It's just to define it and give us some sort of
where
regulation
it can be.
of where it can be put. It doesn't stop anyone from putting them on their house, putting a couple solar panels in your backyard to, as a solar generator.
So
None
this
of
is gonna
that.
be in general industrial district.
Yes. So for right now, zoning, that would put it out at 4 lakes, or that would put it out, a couple of the industrial that we have still left, in the city. There's also some M zoning out past, off of Cemetery Road.
Back in, way back in.
It's interesting, that's actually something that we still have not figured out why they got rezoned to that. That's in the middle of a bunch of agricultural, but it was right on the river. And the best that anyone can guess is when TVA came in,
They came through with the nuclear plant because they were looking at
yeah,
having to expand down into their.
and so it was gonna be a whole nother area. A
Yeah.
lot of that has been rezoned, either agricultural or residential.
But a lot of it ain't, yeah.
Yeah, there's still several lots in there that are still high industrial with being M rated.
I would like to make a motion to approve both of these and send them to
Before-
the full commission.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All, in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
But in the future, we will have to take the.
yeah, always.
We will.
Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa,
Yeah.
they're everywhere, Indiana, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
We need to go ahead and get up on that.
it's coming,
Get some road.
as time goes on, it's coming. It's all
And
gonna
as
be-
we, as the federal government keeps pushing the agenda of alternative sources of energy, it's going to, yeah.
The wind is free.
Just vote. I've been all over the United States and worked at Green plants. They run the whole town on those. Indiana, all through there as well.
Oh, they're all over.
Nebraska.
I've got a big old hill that's under called Starlight. I say the air circulates across it off most of the time.
All right, so now to the meat of the meeting tonight. And I, like I said, I believe it was a little industrious on my part, thinking we could get through all this tonight. So I went through and I took residential and I set both of them out, both the county and Hartsville, just to try to see how similar everything is. And there's a lot of similarities. I mean, a lot of them are word for word identical. What you end up having is you have Hartsville as a city did everything in resolution form. Their laws were resolutions. Trousdale has done everything as ordinances. When they made the metro, the charter states that everything that was used for those two is now,
Consolidated.
it's all law. So where a resolution in any other time now is merely a decree, it's just a statement, it's not law. An ordinance is. Well, everything from Hartsville zoning that was adopted, all of it says resolutions. And so the process of what I'm trying to do, one is clean that up. And there's two ways we can do this. I talked with the gentleman who used to be our representative from GNRC, Rick Gregory. I've been in touch with him because he's still, as he retired from GNRC, he's actually been doing his own advisory to Cannon County. I think he said he was working with Marshall County now.
So he's freelance consultant.
Yeah, it wasn't Cannon, it's Cheatham. And he's actually, counties all over the state are finding themselves in the same position we are for different reasons. And they're needing that advice of, okay, so what's the most effective way to clean this up, because we've been taking the same ordinances and just amending and amending and amending and amending. And now we have a pile, and how do we clean all this up? So I'm taking some information from him, listening to Jim Carmen, who deals with this on a daily basis for a living with our zoning. Okay, so I asked him just point blank, what are your biggest complaints? And the one thing that he came up with, that I think is reasonable, is the fact that with ours, there's so many that are similar, but different. You know, we have C1 in the city and C1 in the county, but they're completely different. Your R1s in the city and R1 are very similar, but they're still different.
That's gonna be your problem.
That was what I was thinking what we could do, and his suggestion was you add a number. So for commercial, when we get to it, you've got C1, which is just our downtown commercial, which allows you to live in the same building as your business. But C1 in the county does not. C2 in the city does not. It's only allowed in that area. So you end up with doing a C1, doing a C2, and then doing a C3. We'd actually add to cover that difference for the county versus the city. So a C2 right now in the city is the same as a C1 in the county. So that C1 would now be just C2. And then the C2 in the county would then be C3. So and it would all be one document. We can do the same thing with residential. And that's what I wanted to look through. Now, what Rick said to do was leave them as two separate documents, change all the wording from resolution to ordinance, and then just go through and clean up. I think it's a little redundant, because like I said, you can look through, get to residential here. Like I said, how much of this is just straight up word for word, really copy. It's almost as if they were copying each other. And based on what I know on some of the writing of these ordinances, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. Because I know we take other counties' templates for different things and just amend them for regulations.
The difference that you're seeing in the city is that you're allowed a smaller square footage for a lot,
Mhm.
for one house, and that is based because you're on sewer
Yeah.
rather than septic, whereas in the county, you're allowed to have a larger lot
So
as your minimum, so that would take into the account the septic
The
fields.
septic and the duplicate fill line.
And so that's where I think, because right now, the way the numbering system is set up, R1 is your most restrictive residential, R2 is a little less, R3 is the least. And that's the way it's done up. I think by doing it, by adding maybe another C4, we can still, just like the example for commercial, that still gives us that separation. And we can still keep the progression the same, but we're just gonna be shifting some things. I have looked into the fact that we can do this and have it pass through the commission, and all it does, it doesn't change anything from a landowner's perspective. There's still a commercial, there's still a residential, still industrial. So it's not a rezoning thing, it's just a changing of the law, and it would change the way the map is done, that the map would have to be changed. So it is something that the commission can do. Any feedback, any suggestions, any comments? What's he
I got
got?
some notes.
Thank you.
So, Sam was saying that, for instance, the C1 in the county and the C2 in the city, you can kind of change that up a little bit where the C1 in the county would now become C2.
Mhm.
And then C2 in the city would become C1. So that everything that's commercial in the urban service district would all just become C1, rather than having a C1, C2 in the
Inside
city.
the urban, yeah.
And then the county, you wouldn't have any C1, because basically the definition of C1 is for a city type of urban services type situation.
But something that was in the county that was C1 would just become C2. It wouldn't change what they were allowed to do on their property, it would just change the name of their property.
No,
Well,
that
actually,
it would, based on what's Sam's notes there, that would expand our C1 district, so you'd be able to live on commercial property. You can't do that outside of the little area of Main Street, Broadway up to, it comes up to the depot, right? Up Broadway, or is that too far? The C1 district?
the C1 goes up to like the depot.
And so it's just that inner downtown area. So like the buildings on Main Street, most of those are two-story buildings, they've got old apartments above them. It allows you to still have an apartment above your business. If we expand that out to the city footprint, it would allow anyone to, I think we would, if we're gonna expand it out that far, you really need to watch not having any regulations on how that, so you can live in the same building. Would that be what we would want to take
Just like-
forward, or?
Oh, just like the pizza place up there, we know people are staying there, but they can legally stay there.
Well, oh, and that's, so that would be staying in the same building, which is the same as what we already have for the downtown.
I think that's,
But if you have it, if you were to expand this for the full city, okay, so you've got, say, the old Bubba's Market, you've got all that property behind it that's just undeveloped. Technically, he could then put a house there, or a double wide, or a single wide, and then, and that'd be legal now. It's not currently. You can't do that legally now.
The minute it
So-
is, you watch and see how far people push the envelope.
Exactly, so
Well-
that's, when we're going through this, we need to be careful.
Is there a grandfathering in versus new permit?
There wouldn't be for this,
They would
because
still-
everyone's already under those. We're not looking to change anything or make it more aggressive. We're just trying to combine what already exists. So that's that unintended consequences we really need to pay attention
The way
to.
that is.
You would still need, like if they were to do some type of structure like that, it still would need to meet what the code set up as far as, there's only one living structure on a piece of property that has so much acreage.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
they wouldn't, and
But-
if they're gonna be doing something like that and
They're
maybe
just gonna
cutting
carve
it
out a
off.
back room.
And that would be legal at that point, as long as that back
They have to
room.
get a remodeling permit and things of
Yeah.
that nature. Now, what Sam also had on here is to help kind of wrap your mind around it. C1 would then be commercial business that has sewer.
Mhm.
Okay, C2 would be not sewer.
Yeah.
So,
So you would have limitations just on what you could do because you didn't have sewer access.
down here, Lotus, you've been wanting to build something like there for years.
Yes. But I don't see it being the only one. I see that can be an issue.
No, that's gonna be the law.
Yeah, so if we're gonna do that, I'm making sure that we have everything in the ordinances that narrows that of what can happen. One building, one on one lot, that
And
saves it
expanding
a
the
lot.
zone, the boundaries of that though.
Mhm.
You take that into consideration, because, suppose the advanced programming building gets sold, the whole upstairs could become apartments.
You could be that. Yeah, so like I said, these are those unintended consequences when we start, it needs to get done, but don't get me wrong.
So do we need to carve these two C and D out and make them, and actually take the time to take it apart? Actually,
I think that's what I want to discuss in this meeting.
we wanna tackle one at a time or both?
Absolutely.
Definitely want,
Absolutely, I
yeah,
mean,
definitely. D was gonna be something on the agenda for, okay, here's what we're gonna look for next.
I don't think we're ready to.
I don't think,
Yes.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna make it to D, so I think we're here. I have talked with, Rick about possibly coming on as a consultant for this body. I've reached out to GNRC. Our new contract for this year they changed the verbiage in the contract. They are only going to come to 2 meetings, for the county as advisors, and
Per month.
a month for the 16,000, which was an increase. So they increased it, the cost of their of their help, and then decreased the amount of help they're going to give us.
And
$16,000 a year?
Yes.
Yes,
I thought it was always just 2 meetings a month, when I came on board, that's what I was told.
Well, see, it was never in the contract before.
they just,
They
they just
changed
spelled it out.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean,
If we do
there's
the
opinions
more,
to be had on that, because
And
in all honesty, I mean, Sam has the right, or has the authority in his office to speak in the same position that they are.
to a point.
Here's the
GNRC
thing,
has a wealth of information that Sam is still learning himself.
Or they're an outside other opinion?
Unbiased opinion.
Yes.
So,
But is it really 16,000 years?
Prove the contrary.
well, and at the same time, that does give us other, I mean, they do furnish the county with with grants and whatnot. That's all included in that too. This is just on the planning side, the contract only includes this much. My thought was, well, okay, I'm on planning also, I can get most of this through planning. The whole point was to be able to take this load off of planning so that planning could deal with all the stuff that they're trying to do instead of generating ordinances. That's not ever meant for something
Yeah,
to be
that's not
done.
their deal.
But we've had to because there was no one else to do it. Of course, everything we do here has to go through planning by state law for their overview and for them to look at and for their input before it would ever go to a full commission. I completely agree with that. It keeps us all on the same plane, if we could ever come up with one. For 6 years, I've really been annoyed. I'm on a committee. It's planning committee without a plan. The plan expired,
10
that was-
years ago.
yeah, and it was a 20-year plan, and they did a great job. When you read that old plan, man, they had it nailed. They knew exactly where our growth was gonna be coming in, what levels we were gonna be at this point. They nailed it, population and all. So,
And so I can't help but think that we might be getting the cart before the horse by doing this, without having a plan.
well, and my point is I wanted to get something going.
And I think this definitely needs to
We
be
need
done.
to, yeah.
We need a
I
comprehensive
I get it,
We need a plan.
what she says makes sense, however, we do need to be looking at this. We have to,
Absolutely.
instead of being, thrown into it,
What are they-
a half hour on fire.
coming up here doing their meetings, they'll have training here. They do the training
And
without us having to do ourselves.
One
they're
suggestion-
supposed to be providing training as part of the contract. That's one of the things that they
Just do it on our own.
There's 2 other things. So one, as I was bringing up with Rick, I have reached out to him because of the limitations of the contract with GNRC. I reached out to him, would he actually consider coming up and working on just this? Because it's what he does, it's what he's done. He did all of Lebanon's.
Is he favorable?
He's very favorable. He was our representative in planning before he retired.
Been here several years.
That is something that him and I were kicking back and forth. He said he normally gets $75 an hour. That is his kind of his standard rate. He says, but I always end up running out of hours before, any billings. It's always one of those things. He never bills for everything he does. Conversations with us over the phone, emails, he's not gonna bill, just what he's actually doing as far as the work on this would be what he bills for.
Would you consider doing it on a per project basis?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we would have to move our meetings from Thursdays, find another day during the week because he's at Cheatham County for their plannings on Thursdays. But he said with that being done, he said he had no problem attending our meetings and working through this with us. It would be one of those where we could actually give him, okay, here's the outline of what we're wanting, and then we let him do it. Because I don't think any of us have the time to sit around and go through this and type it up and.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was one thing that I wanted to bring up. And I talked to him about, well, would you consider actually taking GNRC's place as far as the planning side?
That was where I was getting at.
And he's like, well, I would hate to put you guys in a ditch, he said, because I don't know 4 or 5 years down the road if I'm still gonna be doing this. Because right now it's his own personal, and he's just doing it because it takes care of his free time from retirement. And I completely can understand that.
And he's in his, I'd say he's in his seventies.
Yeah. So, I completely understood that, and I don't know what it would take for us to get back into GNRC at that point.
Well, we've let them,
So-
we've terminated our dealing with them before.
There has to be other
And
organizations
well,
that do
we've
what
let go-
GNRC
we've let them
does.
There
go
is not.
before,
I
to
talked to
White.
Rick about that, because he deals with all of them. He said there isn't anyone else in the Middle Tennessee area. GNRC pretty much came in and ran everyone
Dwight
else
said
off.
they had suspended them in the past,
Hmm.
and then went back to it. And as much as you'd like to think they play hardball, they'll take a flying back.
Yeah.
They're not gonna cut off the rip.
So, he also was mentioning that the state is seeing the issues that are arriving, have arisen from the creation, because GNRC pretty much was created after the state did away with state planning and kind of dissembled it out to the counties. They let those state employees kind of came together around the Nashville area and those counties and created GNRC. And the state never ran it for profit. Well, GNRC is trying to make it profitable. And,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
and now the state's starting to see, well, okay, well, we don't have to have a planning committee in every county. We could just have a consultant, and they could almost put it underneath either CTAS or MTAS and have that body. And so the state is looking at that right now. So that might actually be a resolution without us having to do anything. But immediately for this, I didn't want to take anything to the mayor until I had input from all of y'all. Because I think this would be very beneficial for us and the full commission to have that extra person, that knowledgeable, individual in this field, to kind of help us through.
But if he's,
all
instead of
this.
being, if it is one of those things where he is, a per instance or per project, that's great, as long as it was theirs, he's not, like I said, $75. It just,
Yeah, it's
because
not-
I know the.
So it's.
I
not
know the
county
nature of some of the
attorney type-
people on the commission, and they will attack it
Yeah.
unless we have some sort of guidelines and limitations on that. I'll say that, and I won't drop any names, but there's one fellow in general that won't have a restless spring.
And at the same time, he knows our ordinances because he dealt with them for several years as our representative from GNRC.
Mhm.
And so he knows better than anyone else how to stitch it together. So it should make him more efficient in his time
100%.
because he's already familiar with everything.
And as long as there's guidelines, there
Yeah.
is, this is.
Yeah.
This is the bracket in which this is working in,
Yeah.
because the same, the capricious nature of this individual,
Mhm.
he will,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
every
oh
dollar
my
spent. I
God,
understand
he
what you're
will
saying.
run with that, and you talk about trying to put us on the cross with that, I mean, he's.
Yeah.
But I really do think it's important to have some sort of guidance,
We've got to
because I
have a
don't
professional,
know,
but we've gotta have outside
And
professionals on this that's gonna keep us
Absolutely.
out of litigation.
$75 an hour
Is
is
a
a
bargain.
lot cheaper than county attorney's fee. Not that he's not worth it,
Oh, I know,
but it's a considerable cheap amount less than
it's
that.
better to be covered legally than it is to come here and set ourselves up for that.
This does not
Oh
take
my God.
anything out of GNRC either,
No,
because it would go from us to planning for review.
Right.
GNRC would
It'd be
have
an
full
audit.
review of
it'd
it,
be an auditor, they checks and balances.
and then we would send it over to Brandon for his legal review to cover us
So he signs off on it.
before it went to the full commission for a vote. My idea was to do each section individually.
100%.
Once we have a section done, it would then progress over. And then, once it got through the whole group, well, then it would come back here. And then the next one, when it got all the way through Brandon, it would come back here. And then every month that we have a completed one, I'd give an update, to the full commission, what's going on. Here's what we've worked on, here's what we've gotten to. And then when we give it to them as a full, they know every hand that it's already come through. Every
And
legal
even if they
review,
don't, we need to make sure that they understand.
exactly.
That has to be outlined.
So this is not just the five of us sitting here thinking, okay, well, this looks nifty, let's just do this. I want it known that it was looked
Vetted.
at by
It's been
multiple.
vetted. Yeah, it's been vetted by legal.
Exactly.
Okay.
One of
Hold
the
on.
things that, Sam had suggested was that we would close the office. He said, well, you know, if we close the office for a week, you and I could work on this together, not take any phone calls and be able to match this up. Because, you know, we work with the ordinances all the time. And I said, you know, a whole week is a long time. And I said, people have
The backlog.
inspections. I mean,
Yes.
you know, 300 permits last year, they're all gonna need inspections. I said, what if we were closed one day a week? Just take it one day a week and start matching things up and bring it to you guys. Because again, we see what the nuances are between the city and the county. And so that's another idea as well to help facilitate
I think doing one day a week would be a lot easier. Having Rick come in still gives that outside bird's eye view
Mhm.
and seeing the complications from other municipalities that he's had to deal with, especially with Lebanon, you know, working with Gallatin on some of theirs and seeing the
Sure.
legal fights that have already happened, that we can go, because there are some things that we can add to some of the zoning as we do some of this,
It'll clean up further incidents that were going down.
that are not listed in any zoning at the moment. That we can go ahead and put those in and have them listed as the number, not necessarily the actual title of that entity, and have it listed as the ordinance number so-and-so, and be able to get that through and voted on, so that we're not advertising big holes in our zoning until, you know, as we're trying to get this process done.
Just clean it up.
We're cleaning it up, and there is one particular aspect of zoning that has been, it's been something I've been stomping my feet ever since I found out about it, and Rick Gregory was the one who brought it up to all of us in planning at an education meeting. And it's just one of those, it's happened in other rural counties, and I just don't want it to happen here. And I'm still not mentioning it by name because I don't want it advertised. And if that's wrong on my part, I'll stand and take the slap on the wrist for it, but I will stay in generalities until I'm told by legal that I can't anymore. Anyone wants educational clarification on that after the recorded meeting, I'll be more than happy to give that. That's not a sunshine violation, that is an educational, it's not a
100%.
policy. So I have covered myself in that conversation also. So, let me now get, well, one, do you, as the body, do y'all want me to reach out to Rick and try to set up some sort of negotiation for contract?
100%.
So based on that, I will reach back out to him and try to get something set up. Of course, all contracts will go through the mayor, and we'll get something worked out there, something we can
I
present. to
do like the
commission.
idea though of them working one day a week on it, cause that would then speed up the process.
And there's no reason we couldn't have Rick come in during that time and the three of them be able to,
Yes.
and Rick can kind of help.
He can answer legal.
Or to save money on his contract if he won't do a project, then
Yeah.
they present their 4 weeks of, because if you do it
And then
one
he
day
just
a
merely-
week and we
then
meet
he
once a month,
merely
then
audits.
we have 4 weeks of work
Yeah.
that we can go over and he's here with us to go over and,
Yeah, then he merely audits each month.
Yeah. and we can
And
all
give
kind of
his
go over it
recommendations.
together.
Which might make it more palatable to
Yeah.
others.
Because look, and this goes to the full commission as a conversation. Going to some of the subcommittees I've attended with budget, with the executive. Geez, we have such a huge mountain to climb on revenue. For the
100%.
for the expenses that are coming down the pipe,
Go one night without talking about that, please.
we really can't. That's the
You are
problem.
stressing me out.
I mean, the discussion came up again with the cost of the prison. That $25 million price tag is still hanging. It's $2 million. If we were to close on it last month, the best interest rate we could have gotten, the yearly payment would have been $2 million. If we raise the wheel tax, this was what was thrown out at the executive, Landon threw out the numbers of, if there was a wheel tax imposed again in Drowsdale County
Which,
for $120 a vehicle,
absolutely,
which is 3 times what it was.
2 times what it was 60.
but
It was 40.
it was 40.
It was 40.
And so,
40 plus
you
the
take a look,
states.
yeah, but you rewind 20 years ago, it's linear.
So it's 3 times, but that 120 would only get us to 1.2 million. We're still 800,000 short, and that doesn't give us any money for any other capital projects that might have to go up. So we're in a huge hole with that prison as far as budget.
The jail?
Yeah, the jail. I keep saying prison, I'm sorry. I really do need to work on that terminology. But on the jail, I mean, what we've discussed here as far as fees, that helps some of the bleeding, but it's,
It just
we're
helps
talking a paper
bleeding,
cut.
it's helping the
Not-
bleeding in their office.
I mean, it's just mending a paper cut is what we've done. There's just so much, I'm personally overwhelmed.
But we can't earmark 100% of that wheel tax to the jail.
Yeah, we can, just like we
Okay,
did in
and then
school.
what are we gonna do about
It's good.
I know, but when we do, what are we gonna do with the influx and the stress that education's facing right now?
We're gonna have to come up with something else.
Because
You gotta
education, like it or not, you take a good look at these numbers, Clint is going to need $13 million inside 48 months. He's gonna have to have that. That's not a want. That's a necessity. You take a look at the population, look at the class sizes, you look at what's happening there. I mean, I don't know what planet he's bouncing off of at any given time, but I will tell you that that's the numbers that are, that's real.
Well, at the same time, we don't have enough revenue to support that, so there's no way he's gonna get it.
I know, but then what do we do with the state, because our class sizes, I mean, we're at a point now
Yeah.
where he's either gonna have to build on with 3 schools, or he's gonna have to build another building.
I mean, I know at my house, when my budget's tight, you either tighten your belt and stop spending, or you go get a second job. So as the county, we're gonna have to increase our revenue, or we're gonna have to cut spending somewhere else to pay for schools.
There's,
I understand that.
But
Yeah,
13 to
but-
15 million bucks, we're gonna have to have that.
Because, I mean,
It's hard enough to get employees, you always tell
I understand, yeah, the only comfort I have in all of this is we're not the only county facing this. The whole entire state
But they've
is
got,
facing these
I tried to
problems.
get them to buy the
They-
land for
they-
sale 10 years
I
ago.
know, I understand,
Yeah.
but at
But
least
nobody
it's not
listens,
an
so.
us problem, it's
Yeah.
everybody's problem.
so as I'm looking at the zoning and as I'm trying to move this forward and just kind of keep the boulder going up the hill, as Jack likes to put it. So I think we've got a good idea of a starting point for residential. I'm gonna reach out to Rick, kind of get something set up there. I don't think we're gonna make it to D. I think that, like I said, that was just too ambitious on my part. Because looking at this as a whole, like I said, there's a couple, I mean, there's probably half of the 2 residentials you could stitch together because they're word for word. If y'all look through any of them, you've seen it. I mean, literally they are word for word. So there's no big deal moving them in. It's those 5 or 6 and the different ones that make them different. And how do we address those? When you're combining that with, Residential in the county
The ordinance
versus-
versus resolution,
yeah, that's,
verbiage, that's gotta be cleaned up.
and that's easy enough. That's just a housekeeping thing there. Like I said, my concern is, the difference in your lot sizes. You still, so you have to,
Setbacks,
if-
things of that nature.
if you're gonna have those differences, you need to have that in a different zoning. So that's where that R3, 4, comes into play, stretching it out. So that you can just, you're not combining that, you're just setting it up and it goes in between the next one. I think that's gonna be an easy enough framework to be able to do it, just to take what we have, combine it, what doesn't fit, you just kind of pop it up to where it fits between the different, R levels or C levels. So I think on this one, I'd entertain a motion to postpone this one to our next meeting and hold off on
Motion to
seeing,
move this to the next meeting.
on the commercial until we can get this
Second.
put together. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Okay.
Do we need
Is
a
it-
motion for discussion on Rick and this whole?
I just took it as a general consensus, and since there's really nothing beyond that to really do, it's just passing it on that we are interested and we would like to get into some negotiations on how he will charge
Project
for that.
basis, yeah, so we can keep that framework straight.
And until we have that, there's really nothing to vote on, it's just an
Right,
outreach.
Sidebar, because we
Yeah.
talked about the wheel tax, even if it bumped to 140.
Yeah.
And we took $40 of it and earmarked it for expansion for education, that would put us in a supplemental position for grants.
That would put us back to that 340, 360 a year,
That will,
going towards back to education.
we've got to put something in that direction. We won't be able to do it all for both, but we can find a way to fund that jail. And that will leave us with enough revenue flow to be able to do a bond when we go do the education expansion. It's gonna be cheaper to build on, or we can build on, than it is to break the ground.
Yeah.
I've been looking at this for a long time. And it's going to, if we're not ready for that, it's going to bite us in the rear in the worst way.
I think it's already going to.
Oh, there's no doubt, it's just,
And
it's just being able
And
to
it does tie in,
triage the bleeding at this point.
it does tie into zoning, in my opinion, because with the zoning and the lack of planning and the kicking things down the road,
Can't be more.
we're all in a position now that we're stuck with the can. It's been dumped in our lap. We've got buildings that have been built that are gonna have to be either remodeled already after 4 or 5 years of being constructed because they won't fit the lasting needs of
All
those
of this
buildings.
expansion has cost us more
Yeah.
than the impact fees can ever recover.
I keep getting the same questions from everyone. Okay, we've had all this growth. Why isn't the growth covering the offset? Because you're not taking the expense of the growth into consideration.
We need
Growth
that-
isn't always 100% positive.
No, and that's, at this point, we've got to be able to monetize that. And I will say this too, from a property tax standpoint, I know my property taxes for what I have for land and house is absolutely ridiculous compared to what I've got a friend that's got, 55 acres and a 5,000 square foot house on it, his property taxes are half of what mine is. And there's gotta be some sort of middle ground on that,
Because property taxes
because I can't go up
are the only way we've ever been able to raise revenue.
100%.
We have room to raise our sales tax.
Yes,
We do,
it won't pass so
It
far.
didn't
through
pass
the-
last
it did not, and it's,
That
that's,
goes down heavy.
there's your boulder up a hill.
That hasn't
I know.
been raised. I looked it up. The sales tax has not been raised in Trousdale County since 1989.
Okay, but the majority of the people in Charleston County shop in Sumner County or Wilson County, and their sales tax is higher than ours.
But you got to get that approved, right?
It has to be voted on by the public.
And if,
No, the sales tax, the commission can do.
No,
That's so cool.
And upper management voted against
You guys,
upper management.
I'm not
voted
kidding
against
you.
it.
are you 100% certain that it has to go on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to go to
it
referendum
has to go to referendum, it's gotta be voted on by the populace
for sales tax.
for sales tax.
Now,
everything else we
Lincoln
can
County
raise.
built a school off of theirs, where they raised theirs 2 years ago. We
I
tried,
am not kidding you,
our upper management here,
I could not
Voted
believe it, and, but
That
that
works
is the
against
case. It's,
And they're not, they won't, the people will not pass
I think they'd rather have a sales tax increase
On
than
what?
on the sales
a
tax.
property tax increase.
they don't understand, it ain't gonna be no different. It, like I said, when you go, something costs $1, it's still, even with this raise, it's still gonna cost $1.09. Yeah, still gonna, it's just, so.
Leslie, I wish I had a better answer for you.
I'm mad
Oh,
now.
I
It's a
was,
constant state of affairs for me. When I
I
discuss
was-
county business, I'm just mad.
I was like, are you kidding me? Tell me you're kidding.
And then I'm finding that there's a lot of things, even in
That's so stagnant.
with zoning, there's a lot of things that have been done in the county. Oh, we had meetings on that, but you didn't do anything. There's nothing in writing. No ordinance came out of that meeting, no resolution came out of that meeting. You discussed it, and that's great.
More things need to be ordinance and resolution.
Absolutely.
I think resolution,
Everything.
These people,
it needs, yes.
Resolution should
Resolutions
be
just-
congratulating someone for 20 years service to the county,
Absolutely.
not making a statement of policy.
Never should policy be,
That's my opinion.
yeah, should be referred to as a resolution.
All right, and the only reason I didn't ask for an adjournment, because that way all this discussion is public record and they can't get onto us for talking about policies or anything else. But since there's no way we're gonna be able to go any further until we address some things that have been brought up on the process for doing this rezoning, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor, go.